Okay, so far we've seen a lot of the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus. But it raises a new question. Why would Jesus die only to come back to life? Let's talk about it. Over 2,000 years now, it seems that everyone has been talking about Jesus and an informed decision about Jesus. This is the biggest decision of your life, and let's investigate Jesus together. Okay, so my response to this question is really going to be using the story arc of the whole Bible. And even if you've never read the Bible before and you don't have all the context and the stories and the history, it should still make sense. And I'm going to do it briefly, but we have to go back to the beginning. In the beginning, there was God. And God is the creator. He's the source of all life. You may have heard God being described as holy. Holy meaning different or other, unique, one of a kind. In a sense, God is like the sun. He is both dangerous and he is good. You know, as the earth relates to the sun, if the earth was any closer to the sun, it would just burn up. If it was any further away from the sun, it would freeze. There could be no life either too close or too far. And yet it's properly distanced. It's in a proper relationship to the sun so that life can flourish. In the same way, that's true for humanity. And he designed his world to be good and to be in order and to work well and to bring about flourishing and life. But what's so fascinating is that God, when he created humans, he wants to partner with humans. He didn't create us to be robots, but he created us to be like him, able to think and make decisions and even create. And he put humans in charge of the world to care for each other, to care for the animals, to care for the whole earth. And God's desire is that humans would take his goodness and spread it over the whole earth using his wisdom. And as the creator, it pleased him to create his creation to be creative. That's what we were created for, is to be creative, just like he is. But we chose to do things our own way, and rather than spreading order and goodness, we spread chaos. And here's where we understand something very central to the character of God, is that God is just. And as the creator, he is the judge. And God is good, and he won't allow evil to go unpunished. You know, so if you harm his creation, whether humans or animals or whatever, eventually we will be punished. Specifically, and I want you to hear me on this part, specifically eternal death. Eternal death is the punishment for harming his creation. Why? Because it's a rejection of his rule and his order as the creator, as the designer. You know, and you may think, like I've thought before, like I'm a good person. You know, I generally do right by people. You know, I'm not perfect, but I'm generally nice and I try to do the right thing and help people out. Like how then, if I have harmed people, how then is death justice, right? If I'm mostly good, how then, you know, is death justice? And this is where it's important to recognize that harm is not just about the nature of the harm or even the extent of the harm, but the punishment is about the one that you've harmed, right? It's not just the nature or the extent, but who you have harmed. Let me give you a couple examples, right? Okay, so if you step on an ant, right? It's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's not nice to go around just stomping on ants, but it's not that big of a deal. But if you kick a dog, you know, you're more guilty, right? In the same way, if you slap a man, you might get into some trouble. But if you slap the president, you're going to jail, right? So if you dishonor an infinite and eternal God, you are infinitely and eternally guilty. And that is what we have done. So the punishment of eternal death actually matches the crime. And moreover, rejecting God is rejecting the source of life, right? And rejecting the source of life, it causes separation between us and God, and nothing can live apart from the source of life. So death is inevitable because we've been separated, right? Have you ever been pushing a vacuum cleaner and the cord pulls away from the outlet? It immediately shuts off. That's what it means to be separated from the creator of life. But in our chaos, while we were causing harm, God did the unexpected. While we were still committing crimes against God and his creation that are worthy of death, God came to earth in the form of a man named Jesus. Not to condemn the world, though he had every right to, not to condemn it, but to die for it. Jesus, as the Son of God, divine himself, became our substitute, taking the blame for our crimes against God upon himself, dying the death that we deserved. And his death satisfied the justice of God, the Creator. So in a sense, Jesus is the judge who was judged so that we could walk free. And why would he do that? Is because God is love. And as we've discussed before, though, his death was not the end. His resurrection is a demonstration that his claims are true, that he is God in authority over all, even death itself. But his resurrection is also an invitation, to accept Jesus as the King and to receive forgiveness from God for the harm that we have caused, and to receive hope that even after our bodies die, that we can be raised to new life. See, God is good and God is just, and one day God will return and he will set all things right. In the Bible, it's referred to as the day of the Lord, when God will come full of justice to punish all wrongs and to make all things right. And then he will create a new heavens and a new earth. And all those who have proclaimed Jesus as their King, who have allowed him to be their substitute, who have put on him all of the blame for all the wrongs they've done, and allowed him to put all of his goodness on us, they will all enter into the new heavens and the new earth where righteousness dwells. So this is why I have wanted you to investigate Jesus, to make an informed decision, because I believe it is the biggest decision of your life. And my hope is that you are seeing the need for Jesus. And my hope is that you will put your trust in him and receive forgiveness and hope. But once you do that, God is calling us to accept Jesus as a king. That means we trust him as a king. That means we obey him as a king. It means we follow his command. So what does it mean to follow Jesus? What does it look like to trust him with our lives? Well, we will talk about that in the next video.